All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the July 14th, 2020 regular Moreau Town Board meeting. And with that, ask the clerk for a roll call.
Councilman Hogan?
Here.
Councilman Noonan is here, but he stepped out of the room, so I'm going to mark him here.
Okay.
Councilmember Donahue?
Here.
Supervisor Kuzniers?
Here. And I just want to remind everyone, because we are recording this via Zoom, board members or anybody who representing town employees, to make sure they speak into the microphone so that it can be heard by the clerk, and it has to be transcribed at a later date. And this evening, I'd like to welcome Malcolm O'Hara, who is with us as town council for this evening. So with that, I ask everyone to rise for a pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. First order of business is item 1 on the agenda. And for the record, just want to point out we've been joined by Council Member Leclerc this evening. And the first order of business, as I mentioned, is the approval of minutes. And the first one I'd like to take up is the audit meeting minutes for June 24th, 2020. Any corrections, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I do have a couple items in the second set of minutes. Just want to point that out that we need to change. One of them is on page 147. The second paragraph down from the top where I was talking about the road dedication. It's listed as Timber Lane and it's Timber Lane, I believe, all one word. So if we make that correction, that's good for that page.
That's all one word because the resolution has, I think, 2 words.
Timber Lane.
Right.
Okay, we'll go with what the resolution says.
Okay. But it is timber and not timber.
Yes, correct.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. And on page 149, where we were talking about the capacity under the water department heading, I had mentioned that there's just over 2 million gallons, 2,030,000 gallons to be exact. And I indicated of that 122,000 gallons was provided to the village during that period. And 700,000 gallons came from Saratoga County. And I think we're off of 0 in the amount listed that came from the town of Queensbury. Currently states 1,030,000 and it should stay 1,330,000. So I think you need to add another 0 onto that.
You mean not add another 0, it should be a 3 in place.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Move that number over this.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that's all I had on that. I don't know if board members. Page 144, under resolution 2020-185, second line at the end, it says resolution 173. I think you need to add the letter T and page 130 instead of and page 130. And that's all I have. I don't know if the board has any changes. If not, with those changes, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes for June 24th, 2020 regular town board meeting.
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The second item on the agenda is to set future meetings and workshops. We've been working through the multifamily draft local law update, and I know some board members have provided comments to town attorney, and timing wise, we should be thinking about setting the public hearing on that once it gets in final form. It's not in final form yet, obviously, but I would ask board members if they haven't had an opportunity to provide comment to either my office or Carla to do so, so that we can at least get it in a forum for the public to comment on it. And timing wise, we could set the public hearing this evening if you want for the first meeting in August, which would be August 11th, or not. But either way, we have to get it to the county by, they meet on August 20th. So we won't have a meeting before that date after August 11th. So we can either schedule a public hearing this evening or wait till everybody has the draft and is ready to move forward. We can schedule it after that time. It's totally whatever the board's pleasure is on.
Assuming that we're gonna have something in place before that, so we have an opportunity to go over it, I'm okay with scheduling a meeting for the 11th.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you.
So our meeting, that'll be the first meeting of the month, it'll be at 7 o'clock. Would you like to do a 6:30? That's fine. Would you like to do a 6:30 public hearing? Sure. That work? I think there'll be enough time unless, there's not a lot of change to that local ordinance. But I'll need a motion to set that public hearing then. All right, second. So we've scheduled a public hearing, assuming that we have the draft prepared in a timely fashion for August 11th at 6:30 p.m. here at Town Hall. Somebody want to move that?
Oh, so
Second.
Sorry.
You had already done that.
Wait, or is that, okay, any discussion on that? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item is a COVID-19 update. Just a couple of things there. The governor signed another executive order on Monday, which is 202.48, which extended the suspension of in-person meeting requirements through August 5th. So that allows us to have this meeting via Zoom with not the requirement to have the public in the audience. But I wanted to make the board aware that that's been extended essentially 3 weeks or so. And that came on Monday. And today's update, starting from New York State, the governor added 4 additional states to their mandatory 14-day quarantine period, and they now include Minnesota, New Mexico, Ohio, and Wisconsin. They must meet the metrics to qualify for the travel advisory. Also, 1.5% of yesterday's COVID tests in New York State were positive. There have been 5 COVID-19 deaths in New York yesterday, New York State. And the Department of Health also confirmed that there have been 912 additional coronavirus cases in New York State, bringing the total statewide number to 403,175. And as of today, there are new cases in 51 counties in New York. And closer to home, here in Saratoga County, to date, there have been 624 confirmed cases, 17 deaths. There have been 560 individuals that have recovered. There are currently 48 active cases in the county, and the hospitalization actually doubled since yesterday. There's now 4 individuals that are hospitalized. Yesterday was 2. So the total number of individuals tested here in Saratoga County now is 34,281. And not directly a COVID update, but I did want to bring the board up to speed because it's the result of the COVID pandemic regarding town finances. And looking at the numbers for the past 3 months for sales tax receipts here in the town, we are at sales tax numbers of 8 to 10 years ago. So we've seen a reduction in April of 10.3%. In May, we saw a reduction in 29.6%, essentially 30%. And for the June numbers, we saw, as I indicated at the last board meeting, we've seen a reduction in 37.7%. So we're in good shape financially for the 2020 fiscal year because when the outbreak occurred, we put a hold on all unnecessary spending. We put a hiring freeze in place. So we will weather the storm with this year's budget. It won't be a problem. But next year's budget will be an extreme challenge to put that budget together and have realistic numbers in place to be able to fund government operations. As I've said from the get-go, I have 2 goals. Number 1 is to keep our staff, everybody who's currently on payroll, employed. And number 2, to keep town tax rate flat. So if we can accomplish that in next year's budget, that'll be a huge accomplishment and still provide the necessary services that our residents are looking for. So that's it under the COVID-19 update. Next item on the agenda is zoning administration. The previous 2 board meetings, I made the board aware that the contract for a zoning administrator runs out at the end of July 31st. And I have had conversations with Jim Martin, who is our zoning administrator, and he's willing to keep the terms of the 2-year deal in place for another 2 years with no increase. And those terms are $52,800 annually. And there's verbiage in the contract that allows the town to terminate the agreement at any time with 5 days notice. So I don't know what the board's pleasure is on it. I can tell you that the town is in the process of rewriting or reviewing our code and our zoning, and we continue to work through that process. I know it won't be done this year. It'll be into next year before that is completed. And essentially, Jim is spearheading that. So my recommendation would be at a minimum to continue the contract for at least a year with language that allows us with board approval to continue, have the option to go another year if we wanted to. And the good thing is, at any time, for any reason, with 5 days notice, we can change our minds with no problem. So I don't know what the board would like to do on that, but
I'm fine with 1 year, with that change, I guess, to language there for 1 year, and knowing that we have that language in there if we need to. It's not a secret, we've been trying and discussing getting someone here more full-time than what we have, Mr. Martin, but what he's here, what he does for us is such integral work, and we don't have anyone else at this point. And again, he's been wonderful, so I say let's go 1 more year at least.
all right. Sounds good. Everybody good? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to continue the services of our our zoning administrator for the period of an additional year with the option to renew that with the same annual terms that we have in place, subject to town council review, and authorize the supervisor to sign that agreement afterwards.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item I have on the agenda is under Water Department. We received a request for a water service on 18 Van Buren Street in South Glens Falls. And there was a lot of confusion initially as to whether this property was contained in a water district or not. We confirmed that is in fact in a water district. And the problem is that when this water district was extended in 2012, the water line did not go down that end of the road. So obviously this individual is entitled to water service. He's actually, June 24th, he's filled out an application for water service. There's two ways the town can do that. We could run a 1-inch line down all the way to, it's about 350 feet. So it's not a short distance from where the current main ends. It's a 6-inch main there. That's one thing we can do. However, there's other parcels along the way which are entitled to receive water because they're in the water district. And I spoke with the engineer today, Don Rhodes with LaBerge Group, and I spoke with Jesse about it, and he also spoke with Jesse, and his recommendation is that we extend the infrastructure, which is something that we'll have to budget for in next year's budget. Jesse didn't think, well, he said, you know, to do a water main extension, obviously, his department doesn't have that capability or expertise to do that. And our engineer suggested that, you know, we contract out for that. So, you know, that we're probably talking, it's a big ticket item. We're probably talking, you know, 30, 40,000, maybe 50,000. I don't know for sure without having actual measurements and all that. So I think it's something that we should let this individual know that he's going to get water, and we hope to address it in this year's budget or next year's budget as we put it together, and that way he can plan accordingly from that. And we'll have the engineers put together specs for getting that line run down to the end of Van Buren. So another step backwards, but we're moving the town forward.
We are. Thank you.
The next item I have listed is item 6 is the assessor's office. We have a request, well, let me back up. So the contract that the town has with Gar Associates was for 6 months, and that will end on July 31st. And we have a request from the assessor to continue to engage their services. And so we have a proposal to continue that through the end of the year. And they said the services will include commercial valuation consultation, commercial permit support, multiple listing service and sales verification support, digital sketches, photos, RPS attachment, and updating various RPS valuation components in preparation for the 2021 roll. So this is basically the groundwork to keep the rolls current for 2021. And as the board is aware, when we brought on the assessor, we committed to providing the necessary assistance to help her with commercial valuations, I think it's more critical than ever before now because we do have, well, you can see for yourself under 9, the changes that are occurring there and to have that expertise on board. I think it's important for the town through the end of this year. That's something that we had budgeted for. So it will not negatively impact the budget for 2020. So the agreement, the schedule is for monthly payments of $10,000 each for August, September, October, November, and December. So their proposals for, same as the first 6 months, for $50,000. So I don't know if the board has any thoughts on that, or if not, is interested in moving it. I don't know. what-
I'm interested in, helping the assessor's office and continuing with this. Okay, right?
I'm good with it.
Okay with that?
I agree.
Back in May when we did this, it was explained that we're having these people get us caught up in the assessments where they need to be. And I'm hoping that this will get us to where we need to be, so we're not continuing into next year with the same $10,000 a month. So yeah, I'm for it. Let's get caught up, let's get where we need to be and put this thing back.
Okay, so sounds like the board would like to move forward. So I would entertain a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign an extension, which is addendum to the agreement between the town of Monroe and Gar Associates LLC for assessment support services for the period of August 1st through December 31st, 2020, at an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And item 7 is the transfer station. Got a couple of items there. The first one is we've received a request from Ted Mansour, who oversees that operation for the town, to perform the annual grinding of the brush pile down there. Especially with the summer storms that we've had, we've seen to have had more than what we usually have each summer. So we don't have a lot of room left down there. So at the direction of the board, he went out and secured 3 quotes for the work. And the first one he has is from WM Beers for an amount of $29,650. The next one is, and they're from Albany, New York. Next one from Wood Waste Reduction Service out of Glens Falls for $5,000. And the third is from Galusha Sons LLC in Queensbury for $5,500. Ted is recommending that we go with a low estimate, which is Wood Waste Reduction Services in the amount of $5,000. If the board is supportive of this, it would come from account TS 8160.4, which has a ending balance for June 30th of $26,361.77.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, did you have?
No, I'm just, I guess it's probably a good thing to go with the lowest, but, I'm thinking about Galusha. I think that the quote is good for 30 days versus 90 days. Ted has recommended going with this particular company. I'm hoping that we can get this done and have any other issues there.
Does everybody have a copy of the proposals?
Yes.
You should.
Wood waste just says on there is grinding of brush pile.
Galusha has grinding for brush pile located at the transfer station for $5,500. All ground material will remain on site. The above price is based on 1 mobilization, and this is a prevailing job.
Which is been good. He's helped us out in years when we couldn't get anybody else.
Yeah, so I don't know if Ted made sure the other one was prevailing. So,
I don't know that either, but
which we're required, we are required to pay, so.
when I look at Galusha's write-up versus food waste reduction, it was more professional. It's like, this is what you get, and, what written in such a way that there's no misunderstanding.
So we could do one of two things. We could approve one this evening, subject to verification of the prevailing wage. Or we could approve one with an option to go with the second highest, if the first one does not pay prevailing wage. Or we could table it until we verify. So you have three options.
Yeah,
Totally whatever the board will choose.
I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking having conversations with Ted, having conversations with Paul Joseph. It's a little early to chip him, although I'm thinking that the size of the pile and what's being brought in still, we probably need to get this done. But if, it was put off for 2 months, that would put it beyond that 30-day mark for wood waste.
Well, what's the date on that? I think it's the 8th, so we wouldn't have our next board meeting. We can reach out and see if we can keep it till the 11th, and we could verify some of the, well, no, there'll be another board. Yeah. So we can table it if the transfer station or transfer committee wants to follow up on that.
I'd like to.
All right, that's right.
Find out.
Did we have a motion on the
We
table?
had a motion. I'll rescind that.
She made it, so she would withdraw the motion.
One thing also, and I know we're not going with the company on Vulcan, but they talk about using our equipment and
Yeah.
having us do things for them. Wood waste is new, so they're kind of unknown. So if we could ask them how this will go, other than just grinding a brush, if they're going to expect us to participate with them or to allow them to use our equipment, or if they have any expectations like that also.
Yeah, just grinding the brush pile is all that you get for wood waste. Price.
All right, so we've rescinded the motion. You've got a record of that?
I do.
All right, so we will take that up at the end of the month meeting. And let's see. Also, the second item I have this evening for the transfer station, the transfer committee, as reported at the last board meeting, has been working to address the issue of the pile of yard waste at the transfer station. And I know that the staff down there had concerns about non-residents bringing in, or commercial haulers bringing in brush and composting and et cetera. And I know Council Member Hogan at the last meeting graciously agreed to work on a new fee schedule sheet that can be handed out. I think board members have a draft of that, and you want to go through the suggested changes?
Well, essentially, some of it just had to do with wording, but, so the yard waste is accepted only from town residents. No, if you're not a town resident, you're not dumping it. To have it listed, so there's no charge for brush, composting, leaves, and grass clippings. So this goes into the yard waste. We've already had it in there for only fallen tree limbs and brush from storm damage accepted, checking with the transfer station and site restrictions, highlighting the no commercial haulers and no lot cars, so that our employees know that it's not allowed. Exceptions for this yard waste would be that if somebody's coming in, we do have town residents apparently that come in with larger trucks, But if they have a, you know, a state body truck or a dump truck, charge it $30 per load. Along with that exception, not to charge town-owned mobile home park owners hauling on behalf of their park residents. So Lamplighter or White Birch, you know, if they're picking up in for their residents and they're bringing it in as a boat, we don't charge for that. And pretty much that's it.
Okay, and also council member Donahue is also part of that committee and has been involved in working through the issue, but didn't mean to cut you off.
All right.
We're back at that.
Did you, sir, did you want to add to that?
No, it was good. We had a real good discussion down there with Ted and Mike, banks and ideas back and forth, and just bring them up with it, it's pretty good.
And if you're all in agreement of it, we'd like to accept this as being what they will be doing.
I think it's a needed change. You know, again, it doesn't really affect the residents of the town. It just provides clear direction to our staff that non-residents who don't pay any taxes, don't contribute to the chipping of the brush, will not be permitted there. That eliminates the commercial haulers down there. So it actually benefits the taxpayers of the town of Monroe. So do you have the changes, Leanne? Okay, so I guess I would ask that a motion be offered with the new fee schedule and requirements for the transfer station to be adopted with the effective date, because we want to give them the heads up on the time of August 1st, so people, we can hand this out.
That'd be fine with me.
Okay, does that work for everybody? That way nobody is caught off guard here. So we will make sure we print up copies of this, and we'll have transfer station staff hand it out with it going into force and effect on August 1st. So we will need a motion to do that.
So you'd like a motion to accept the change in the fee schedule for the transfer station dealing with the acceptance of yard waste.
Second.
Any additional conversation, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously, and we'll get that posted on our website as well, so that our residents know that it's coming. And I just want to thank the transfer station committee for working on that. I know that the staff will be very happy to learn that they have clear direction now on what the town expects from their services down there. I did receive, while we were in conversation and discussion on that topic, backing up to the grinding of the wood chips, highway superintendent has indicated that wood waste is a self-owned only employee. So obviously it doesn't have to.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes anybody's mind, but
I'm happy to accept it then at $5,000. Do you want a motion on that?
So it sounds like Paul knows the individual as well, that they would know that?
I don't know that.
I'm just curious.
We've used them before.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm okay with going forward.
So, all right, so,
So let's get that back on the table.
all right, so somebody would like to move that we engage the services for grinding brush at the transfer station of wood waste reduction services out of Glens Falls at an amount not to exceed $5,000, which is, I quote, good for 30 days, and it would come from account TS 8160.4, which has a balance of $26,361.77 as of June 30th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, good. Item 8 I have listed this evening is the Sewer District 1 Extension 5. At the last board meeting, I updated everyone as we're working through the sewer project, and we're in the process of securing easements for that project for the main and the lateral infrastructure. And the board was in agreement to offer a payment for the easements based on per footage. And in order to do that fairly, we had to basically have an appraisal on what that value would be per foot or per acre. So the engineer reached out to several companies, and I think the board should have a matrix of them. We received responses from Gar Associates, which would provide value ranges per front foot and per acre, an amount not to exceed $5,000. It would require a 2-week turnaround. We also received the price from Integrated Valuation, which would do the same with a 30-day turnaround for $7,200. We received from ESAC an estimate of $4,250. However, they indicated that is with a 3-week turnaround, but they said they could do 2 weeks if necessary. And then the final quote was from RK Height, and they could do it for $5,000. I spoke with Carla, the town attorney, and with Don Rhodes for a recommendation, which one to go with. Obviously, the three of them are pretty close. The issue here is the time-sensitive nature, to keep the project on track. They want to have all the easements basically in by the end of the month. And any of those that may be outstanding, to at least be able to tell them what the town would pay based on the assessment. And so Don Rhodes, our engineer on the project, has recommended that we go with Gar Associates because we're already using them for our assessment services. Yes, so they're, to be more specific, Gar indicated that they would research land values and sales for specific zoning, land uses, shapes, and topography along the Route 9 corridor. They would provide value ranges per front foot and per acre for the town as a frame of reference for easement offerings to property owners. And they would also discuss factors that will impact value, such as zoning, if applicable, irregular shaped lots, corner traffic, signal lots, etc. And GAR will also retain all sales data and all relevant information in their assignment work file. And they said that their fee would be $5,000 with a turnaround time of 2 weeks. So if the board's comfortable with that, go with the engineer's recommendation on that. I'd entertain a motion to engage their services.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 9, I have listed for Recreation Department on this evening's agenda. And first order of business would be to congratulate our rec leader. We received, as everyone's aware, that position requires examination. And not only examination in order for the town to retain that full-time appointment that we made several months ago. The individual would have to score in the top 3, and not only did Peter score in the top 3, he was number 1 with the highest final exam rating. So I just want to point that out on the record. And I will be completing the necessary paperwork to get that to the county for civil service purposes. And we do have, I was gonna have it under committee reports, but we can take it up now if we want to talk about activities at the rec department. Totally whatever the board pleasure.
Right now it's fine.
So, the town park, town of Monroe has not closed, the Harry J. Bitar Park. We have kept it open through the entire COVID-19 pandemic. With the board feeling that, with everybody being required to stay home and people not having a lot of options for getting out of the house, out of the yard, out of their parents' hair. We've seen an uptick in a lot of people using our park. They've done, for the most part, they've done a very good job about social distancing. They've been walking down there, they've been running down there. So now we've got a keen interest from some of the teams that are coached by coaches that reside in the town. They'd like us to open up the fields for use for baseball and softball. And I've had conversations with the rec leader to work with the coaches to come up with the New York safety plans that everyone's is required to have for CDC and New York State DOH protocols. And with that, I'll turn it over to Council Member Hogan, who I know has been working with the rec leader, has been working with the groups to provide an additional update. I know that there will be an opportunity for a rec leader to also weigh in.
So I put a lot of faith in Peter and drawing up a plan for what we would expect based upon the guidance that we've been receiving from the state and other entities. I and a few others that I know of would like to see this park open back up for teams that can play games. We have come to determination that we do not want to open up for tournaments. We don't want teams coming from out of state, but most of our local teams are playing. Most of our local teams are just playing single games right now with teams within the capital district area, not going beyond that. So it's not like they're coming in from other states. They're pretty much right in this area. Softball, I think, is pretty similar in that sense. I don't know all the different players that might be on in the softball games, but from experience, I know that they're not very far either. And they, because of the travel restrictions, any of the outside teams know that they can't come here. It wouldn't be responsible with them, and they're choosing not to, as well as a lot of the entities that have chosen to cancel tournaments that were scheduled, as we have pretty much said that's what we're doing as well. We'd like to see the park open back up for the games, the local teams, and get the kids playing again. I'm looking at a schedule right now that basically would go through August 16th, but probably at the park, at our park, the last game that I see scheduled will be August 4th, if in fact they can play there. And this is coming from my son's game. I'm thinking that Peter has drawn up a protocol that was in accordance with what the state has recommended. I know that like Eastern New York Travel Baseball, they also have protocol, and it's just a matter of like the coaches knowing that they have to enforce it, or they're not going to be allowed to play them. And they're willing to do that. My son's coach, he's bringing hand sanitizer, face masks for the kids if they can't provide their own. And I just left the game up in Glens Falls tonight that they're playing, and home base umpires wearing masks, kids in the dugout are wearing their masks. They're following protocols. I think it's time to open back up. I know that, and these people are willing to do this, follow the protocols to be able to buy. They just need a spot to do it.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with that. You know, none of us know what the future holds, but at this slice in time, I think it's something that we can do safely as long as a rec leader has whatever staffing is necessary.
So speaking of that,
And we'll talk to that. I just want to make sure though, when we say open up the park, I am not in favor of allowing our pavilions to be rented.
That's fine.
And the reason, there's several reasons for that, but primarily, there's not a single pavilion in any New York State park that's open right now. They're all cordoned off. And for us to go beyond that example, I don't think it's appropriate at this time. But regarding use of the fields, you know, we put a lot of time and effort into it. You know, there's a strong willingness to get out and use the facilities. And obviously we want to, you know, because we're going to balance public health with that, with a plan in place, I think we can do that. So,
sure.
so I know you have questions for Pete regarding staffing.
Well, so he's sent out some information, and feels that he's shorthanded, and I understand. And I reached out to my son who's in the high school level and said, you know, my kids who might be interested. And he started making some texts to these kids, and I'm thinking that there's 3 or 4 kids that I could have applications here probably by the end of the week, if not tomorrow morning. But with that said, you know, I know that he would like to see somebody with more buildings and grounds experience. I think to get through the season, we probably should be looking at the younger kids right now and get, you know, somebody there and then discuss for a long-term appointment for maybe for next year and at budget time, which that's a clue to you.
Yeah, I think we have a very short window to use the fields, especially with the colleges starting up sooner earlier because of the pandemic. And so, you know, the quicker that we can get there, the better. And that's probably going to require that we do use, you know, high school.
So the college kids, college kids are starting back up like August 13th or so. They'll be home for Thanksgiving, but.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to make sure that the rec leader had an opportunity to weigh in and then maybe comment on some of the board members' comments.
So board member, Councilman Noonan asked me today to do some research as far as the age of workers.
Yeah, the question I asked him was how old do kids have to be in order to operate all the machinery at the rec?
And so based on both state and federal labor laws, it looks like children under 16 years of age cannot operate lawnmowers, lawn trimmers, weed cutters. But then it went on to say that federal law also prohibits workers under the age of 18 from driving motor vehicles or being an outside helper on motor vehicles.
We actually have, we have a memo from town attorney on that. That's been previously brought up, so we can resurrect that and get the requirements around to all board members on that.
That would be my only concern. We have a number of riding mowers, motorized rakes. Basically everything down there is motorized, and that's what we kind of need to be able to keep up on the amount of field prep, field work that we have to do. As far as operating vehicles, I mean, we can probably get around that. They don't need to be driving the trucks or trailering the equipment. We can do that for them. But I am a little concerned about the lack of staff this summer at the rec department. I will not have the luxury of being able to train newer, younger employees as well as we have been able to do in the past.
Two of the kids that I'm thinking of right now that would apply have several years of experience with operating mowers and weed whackers. Some of it I know firsthand.
Okay.
Well, I think there's two issues here. One is we have some long-term staffing challenges, and we certainly have some immediate term.
Sure.
And so I think it's two different topics. I think, and we'll have to look at this at budget time. We need to look at having a program in place where we have additional full-time employees at our park, because we're just at that level now.
And that I understand, and I think that would be.
So, that's something that we will have to address. But the short term is, we need to get somebody in there to at least let these kids get out there before school starts up.
We did have a handful of applications that came in right as the pandemic was starting, because we had advertised, the board had authorized me to advertise for some summer help. I could revisit those applications. There's also at least one more seasonal employee who has been with the town for a number of years, typically only works a few nights a week, but he may be interested in helping to bridge the gap. Because again, closing is a concern. The park, if we're going to be open for practices and games, the park hours are listed as 8 to 8, but it's more practical to think it's going to be 8:30 or 9, even some nights, by the time our staff is able to close everything up and get out of there. So having reliable, responsible people to be able to go through the park in the evening and making sure that I would really rather not have just one person. It really, minimum of 2 in the evening to help to kind of get everything closed up and get everybody out of there for the night. So, but I don't see any of these things as unworkable, and I'd be happy to work with the personnel committee or the rec committee or both committees and figure out how we can address the immediate staffing needs. And then again, I'll be very happy to have a conversation about long-term staffing come budget workshop time in the fall.
So I think, I'm sorry.
With regard to reopening the fields for practices and games, we've talked about the sort of rubric that I created, I don't like to call it rules, I guess protocols that we're going to ask teams and organizations to follow. This was put together by scouring, going through New York State Department of Health, publications, CDC, again, individual organizations like USA Softball, Eastern New York Travel Baseball. I think it's fairly comprehensive, and I'd like to think these are the same things that any town would be requiring if they are in fact allowing teams to practice or play games there. I do have 1 or 2 questions. I guess the greatest concern is with regard to games at the park. There has been some contradicting things that have come out of the governor's office when he initially said that youth sports could resume on July 6th, that they would be allowed to have 2 spectators per player. There is also currently a limit on gatherings of, the limit on gatherings is currently 50 people or less. So the average softball game or baseball game down at the park with 2 spectators per player, coaches, umpires, it's going to run in the 75 to 80 person range. range on the average. So I've asked town council to review this. It doesn't sound like there is a clear-cut answer, one way or the other. I can tell you that other towns are viewing socially distanced spectators as separate gatherings, and that's sort of how they're getting around the number issue. If I come to the field with my players and their parents, and we are on the first base side of the outfield watching our game, and the other team and their spectators are in the opposite side of the field, that everybody is socially distanced.
Well, I think a lot of the issues were addressed by the organization that will have to put a safety plan in place that we approve, not approve. If they're following that and we approve it.
What I will say is, the organizations that I've spoken to do not believe that a 50-person per field limit is workable. That if they cannot have the 2 spectators per player, and again, could drive the numbers per field up to 75 or 80, then it's not really going to be feasible for their organization to hold a game at the park. So that's why I'm stuck kind of on that one point.
Yeah. No, I understand, when I look at the field and think about positionings and where people could gather, granted, you might have more than 50 people at a field, but they can be so spread apart that they could, single families can easily fit within a 6-foot area, 10-foot area, 12-foot area, and still have space for other people out there without, the social distancing can happen on a park that, a field that's 350 foot deep.
What I am recommending, based on the guidance that I've seen from various organizations, is that no more than half of the fields in the park would actually be used at any given time. So that in the quad, for example, the quad softball fields, we would have 2 fields going. They would be the opposite, either A and D or B and C, but not all 4 at the same time. And so if a game is ending on A and C, those teams have a chance to leave, and then we begin a game on B and D, or vice, we mix it up.
Sure.
So that makes me feel a little better too about allowing a few more people per field. Because down in the quad with 4 fields back to back, if you started thinking about 75 to 80 per field, now that's times 4. So now you do have a fairly large concentration in one relatively small area of the park. So if the board is happy with these tables that I've created, then this will be the guidance that I sit down and go over with all of the individual coaches and organizations. This is what they will be agreeing to follow, these protocols. There will be waivers for players, coaches, spectators. My understanding is they do not need to sign one for every game, but as long as we have one of these on file.
So there's a waiver, a COVID waiver put out by the Eastern New York Dutch Baseball. Is that adequate for the team? I know I went online and had it electronically signed out behalf of myself.
So the town's attorney and I discussed waivers actually quite a bit over the last few weeks. We do know that some other organizations are requiring their own waivers, but it seems like the best way for the town to sort of make sure that we're covered is to get our own from everyone.
Is that what this is?
So we prepared a draft. Carla and I worked on this. This is very similar to what other towns such as Greenfield are using for their rec department. It's basically the same sort of language that we see on the pre-work checks, home checks and stuff that we're supposed to be doing. They're just gonna say that they understand the risks of the virus and the risks of participating in athletics where you're gathering with other people, and that you're monitoring yourself for symptoms. You're not going to attend if you're not feeling well, those sorts of things.
So just to keep us moving along here and productive, first of all, thank you for putting together, working with the rec committee. I know you met with them at least once or twice, and putting together this reopening plan. I've read the reopening plan. I don't think it's unreasonable. I've read the draft assumption of risk waiver. I don't know if the board has done that as well. I'm okay with this being in place and allowing us to expand our recreational opportunities at the rec based on everything we talked about, the protocol, that draft protocol that we have here tonight. I think if those groups are working within those parameters and are abiding by the terms, then they should be able to use part of it.
I agree.
I have one question. When they talk about the tracking, are we supposed to be keeping, or maybe the coaches know what kids were there, some kind of a roll call? So if someone gets sick, we have to say we need to let all these other people know. Let know.
So each organization, John mentioned, Councilman Hogan mentioned Eastern New York Travel Baseball, for example. They have their own set of health and safety guidelines, and they do have, I believe, information here, preventative measures, on-field rules, and I believe, yeah, they have a facilities piece. With regards to tracing, similar to when the town planned to reopen to public in this building, we had to complete the New York State's New York Forward Safety Plan template, and we had to say how we were going to keep track of people entering and exiting the building, those sorts of things. So those organizations will have to do that.
You don't have the staff to be out for us, man.
Right. If we're going to move forward, then the first order of business for me will be to reach out to all of the organizations that normally use the park, give them our expectations, our protocols, and make sure that we get all of the paperwork and everything before we start scheduling fields. What I would say is, on some of the information I'd given you, I had put the 15th as a possible starting date, which is tomorrow. I don't think that's realistic for me, for my staff, or even for these organizations. It's going to take me a few days to go through and make sure that all of our ducks are in a row, but I'm happy to do this.
You have a number Friday?
I understand there are some games scheduled for this weekend.
People are antsy.
I can appreciate that. If I'm being honest, I'm a little antsy too.
So I know you're hesitant. What gives you pause? Not having the fields ready?
The fields, we have put all of our attention into those fields for the last week,
Right.
and they are as good as they've ever been.
So
It's not the fields.
what
It's
is-
making sure that I can disseminate this information to the groups and I can have all of their paperwork back to me. The other thing that I need to remind everyone is that the town has always had protocols for reserving field time for practices and games. All of the town's normal paperwork and fees, which get paid to the town clerk's office, all of that must be taken care of as well before someone is granted field use. So I just don't think, I'm gonna be able to turn this around and have somebody meeting all of our requirements and practicing or playing a game tomorrow.
Well,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
I'm just thinking about like, with, the Northeast Hurricanes.
Yep.
Don't we have a contract in place or something?
so
Did that not happen?
the town board had approved contracts with several organizations this year. There was not a contract signed with the Hurricanes. We did have a signed contract with South Glens Falls girls softball and youth baseball. Those contracts are not in force at the moment. We could not, the town could not live up to our end of those contracts, and the organizations did not live up to their end of the contract as far as payments and things were concerned. So that is another question. I would need some guidance maybe from the rec committee on how to negotiate a fee for an organization such as the Hurricanes that is more than just a one-time, or casual use, but we're gonna play 40 games there over the next 6 weeks. Those are all things that, again, would need to be ironed out.
Well, I'm looking at roughly 4 weeks at this point, based upon what I see for schedule, but, obviously we couldn't start when we wanted to start because of COVID restrictions.
Right.
I'm thinking that if we could do something where it's a reduced rate for the contract and basically it's signed by Jack Hills, isn't it, and you?
What, I don't know what timing wise, if the rec committee could meet tomorrow morning. If they did have that time availability
I could later in the morning.
or later in the morning, I would suggest, because, we've got hold harmless agreements, things like that. The rec committee could meet with the rec leader, come out with for each group, a prorated fee schedule, an agreement that the organizations will sign that they received this and will abide by it. And we'll do an amended contract. We can do lineouts in the contract, if it works for them. We have the hold harmless agreement signed.
I'll
I still
also,
think we get the fees paid before, I think we should still get that.
That's what I'm thinking,
So why don't we,
with getting the information out to them.
Sure.
You can, most of these people will take emails and can disseminate it, like, through Jack Hills, you can disseminate it to the coaches.
Yep.
He's, get the coaches to have their kids sign things, or families.
I will just need to coordinate with the clerk's office to make sure, we do have some insurance certificates on file, but I know that some people have renewed since, like, during the pandemic. So we'll have to see who has insurance on file, who doesn't. So I'm happy to make this a priority tomorrow, and I will move as quickly as I can.
Give me 10:30 or
well, whatever.
Well, what's gonna work for you?
probably 10:30 or 11. Tomorrow's filing day. I have 3 people's tax. They're still lagging and selling
That works
money.
great.
Yeah, I'll get with, the
So
clerk's
that
office in the
way,
morning.
we can work out the nitty gritty on the groups, get that information hopefully by tomorrow out to them. That'll give them, tomorrow's Thursday. Did you say they want to play?
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Oh, right.
There is a game, a request for the park to host a baseball game on Legion Field Thursday.
Okay, so if they, after you guys are done meeting tomorrow, they meet all the obligations that they normally would have to meet, we're good to go. Right?
As far as I'm concerned,
Have until 6 p.m. tomorrow.
11 o'clock here.
11 o'clock here.
I have a feeling, and I expect that, because there's such a keen interest to make this work, that they will work with the town to make this work.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think it's gonna be an issue. If they're not willing to do that, then they don't get what they're looking for.
I'm not sure if the board feels it's necessary. It would make me feel better if there was a resolution adopting this plan.
You don't need a resolution for that, but what would the resolution say? This is administrative action.
That we're adopting this this plan and empowering the
All right,
rec
so,
leaders to
so I'll
enact it.
entertain a motion to adopt the reopening plan as provided by the rec leader on July 9th, 2020, for the recreation park, with the agreement that all groups utilizing the park will abide by the agreement, will sign it prior to using the facilities. And they, that will include assumption of risk weighted.
So,
Second.
Discussion.
I just want to thank Councilman Holden and Peter, our rec leader. We had a meeting, we went over things a lot. I know that many things, I don't know how comfortable I am about this.
Yeah.
And when I saw the detail and the information that Peter had gathered and the amount of work he put into pulling this all together, it was amazing while we get pulled together. And John was able to answer my questions and it seemed reasonable and doable. So thank you. I left thinking, okay, maybe we can make this happen. And every now and then I'm like, but I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for all of you.
So any other discussion?
Just real quick again, thanking the rec committee and Mr. Polachewski for making this a priority. And, you know, we've all been hearing that the kids want to get back out there, but I think the important thing to do is do it safe and right. And I think we're going that way. So that's great. My only other question was about the plan. So say we get, I just have to ask this question. Say we get an organization that has a leader that says, who cares, we're playing. We're not going to follow rules.
they're not allowed back.
So can we say something clear, like, okay, fine, you've lost the right to host a tournament for 2 years in our park, or something along those lines? We don't have to do a warning system, we don't have to do anything, everybody knows the rules at this point, because they've been going to fields for a week now playing, and I hear that some fields don't care. And
So
then,
you could,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's a big deal. We expect, like you said, major buy-in, they're gonna work with it. As things get more casual in the next 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and it's like, oh, we have forgotten what we have to maintain here, because we all know there's no medical solution yet for COVID-19, and keeping these protocols and parameters in place is going to slow the spread, because that's all we can do. We have to make sure that these bylaws or protocols, whatever we're calling them, are followed and maintained. What is I guess the fallout if you decide to disregard what we've asked an organization?
oh, I have no problem if you'd like to offer the following resolution to go along with that agreement, that failure to abide by the terms agreed to, which the reopening plan has, may jeopardize future use of town road facilities.
I think that's great, because what's gonna happen is it's not gonna be someone from town that picks up on it. It's gonna be calls from parents that go, you know, I thought you guys were doing great, thanks so much, but nobody, because I've already heard it from other places that parents are nervous that their kids could get sick or something if someone isn't following the rules, and it's, you know, this coach doesn't want to follow the rules and they don't care. So they all kind of, you know, it will come back to us one way or the other, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a town employee that goes, I saw this happen. It's gonna come back to us.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but my assumption has always been that field use was at the discretion of the rec leader. And if I have any issues with not following rules, then it's at my discretion to not allow the use
Yeah,
by that
that's fine.
organization.
I think the agreement that they signed should have that verbiage in it.
Right, so they're aware, and I think that's great, and maybe we even put some signs out with a town number on it to contact the rec leader should there be a question of our safety plan, because you guys have done such good work in putting this paperwork together that it shows that our focus is safety, and we want to make sure it's maintained, so thank you.
you're right, because how many people, how many teams got sent off the fields when this all was crashing down on us and didn't care about the rules and snuck into the fields, and that was my big concern. If they didn't follow rules then, how do we know they're gonna follow protocol now? So this is a chance to give people an opportunity to be back on the fields, and hopefully they take us seriously. They should have before.
So if you want to change that form, you'll have to offer that. Or somebody will have to.
We just make a motion to change the form right this over
Based
to verbal.
on the verbiage, to add that to the reopening requirements.
Just trying to think how we should word it.
She already
I
had
wrote
it.
down with the supervisor.
Okay,
Just somebody want to move that.
so I make a motion to change, an addendum to the previous motion,
To include the verbiage outlined regarding use of the fields by the supervisor,
to include the verbiage outlining the use of the fields via the supervisor,
as previously stated.
as previously stated.
So
That works. Second? All right, third, fourth, and a fifth.
any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else for Rick?
One thing before we go further, I want to tell you a great job on this, and the committee will be great job. You can tell there's work put into this document. Great job. I can see you're ready. You're trying to get it out there, get this thing done. I love that. That's fair. The only other thing I want to touch on is the employee thing. If we authorize him to start vetting some employees, some people, to get the employees that he needs to get.
Oh, right.
We've given him the authority to work with the rec committee or whatever, because we gotta get this done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, so I think we touched on it, but we didn't really.
Yeah, it's really good.
So my recommendation would be for either the personnel or rec committee, doesn't matter to me. Get the applications that we recently received for working at rec, as well as any new applications. And it's up to the board. Do you want the rec committee to work with the rec leader on that, or do you want personnel committee?
I'm comfortable working on it.
All right, so the rec committee can work on
We'll
getting
add
that.
that to our agenda for tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, how's that?
So I don't have copies of any of the applicants.
I have copies and we can get them.
Yeah, we could.
Oh, the new ones?
No,
Okay, we'll get the old ones. Yeah.
if you give me new ones, I'll have more for you too.
Anything else for Fred?
But I'm just thinking with the older ones, you run into see if people might still be interested.
All right, good. So with that, if we're all done with rec, we've got some supervisor items, interesting and eclectic across the board. I'll go through really quickly here. I know we've gone a little bit long. First thing is I got a call today and I spoke with the highway superintendent from an individual on Donna Avenue requesting a three-way stop sign there due to repeated speeding offenders. It's actually an issue in some early areas of town, but he believes it's a dangerous situation. And talking with Paul, the highway superintendent, there are some requirements dealing, I think, with the county to make that happen. But I'll be talking with him further on that to see if that's a possibility there. I also received correspondence from the New York State Department of Transportation. This is in relation to the I-87 exit 17 redesign. In their correspondence, they indicate that they anticipate the project construction will begin in the summer of 2021 because sewer won't be enough. We need to redesign our exits in the same year, and it will be completed by the end of 2022. And so they have put together, and I don't know if the board got a copy, but I just got it yesterday. If not, we'll get it to the board. A copy of a informational brochure that's going to be mailed to the public, to those residents and businesses that are near the project area. They expect that this mailer will go out July 16th. And what it is, it's two-sided. It's got a picture of the town of Monroe with the redesign and in more detail. It's got FAQs on one side and a close-up of what the new design will look like. I'll get a copy for board members. We'll put it on our website. I told DOT I would do that. And they will receive comment on their proposal. I will be, with the recommendation of the water superintendent, I'll be lifting, or the town of Monroe will be lifting the water emergency. The village is also doing the same. Theirs automatically by resolution will be lifted tomorrow. And anticipate I'll be doing a reverse E911 call to let the public know that that is happening. Also, board is aware, but this is for the public, that at the planning board on July 20th, the Stewart Shop site plan review for their new shop on Route 9, corner of Spire Falls Road, will be taken up. So any member of the public that would like to view that or comment, if they're allowed, they can go to the website and see how to watch that. I want to commend actually a member of our planning board, Eric Bergman, who's been working with the town as an employee of Boralex to install the gates down there in the industrial park. I don't know if anybody's seen them. I was down there yesterday. They're all painted. They're locked to keep people from trespassing, dumping, TVs, chairs, couches, toilets down there in the National Grid right away. And target practicing.
Way down.
Yeah, down by the river. So want to thank them for working to put that up for us. They paid for everything. They built the gates. The only thing that they asked is that the town supply a dumpster and manpower to clean it up, and Paul's been working with them, and so we should get that cleaned up here in the near future. So kudos to Boralex. I want to make the public aware that I received a press release from Saratoga County today that the Wilton DMV location will be opening July 27th. And they will also be establishing a new online reservation system for DMV services. I'll put that link up on the town's website. And let's see, I don't know if board members have had an opportunity to view the new location, actually new location. We haven't had an office for the local historian, and they've done a great job. I know the rec department has been working to get that space up and usable. So there is an office over there for any member of the public that wants to meet with the local historian, who is Bridget Martin, in case no one knows. And thank everybody involved for getting that facility made available and usable by the public. And the last item I have, as I continue to work with DOT, my most recent update regarding drainage along 197. They have a design now, as I indicated through the past many months. One of the challenges was didn't have the right soils to do a punch through into the sublayers so they could put dry wells in and get the water down. But they have a design that will be a 0.4% slope where they will replace 3 driveway culverts. They will use the jet to clean out the culvert underneath 197. They have agreement from the property owner to ditch that side of the road, the south side of 197, down through the natural drainage area, which goes behind this woman's property. I don't have her name, but she graciously agreed to work with DOT and letting them have access to her property. So there will be a 3-foot drop from that culvert all the way underneath Selfridge Road. They did indicate they're not sure that this will address the issues, but it will allow the water to at least move a little quicker down through there. I asked them when they plan to do the work, and I kind of hate to put the timing out there because every time I put it out there, it just gets pushed back. But I can tell you that their hope is at the end of the month, but it all is predicated on their access to the Gradall, which is shared by 3 different regions, which always isn't working. So it's predicated on the availability of an operating Gradall. You know, it's still on their horizon. So that's that. And that's all I have for this evening. Does any board member have anything else? Yes, Councilman.
I know we talked briefly about the idea of a part-time code enforcement officer again, since we lost Peter. He had started quite a few files on a lot of violations going back when from his time here, and I know a lot of those at this point need follow-up. And with building going back up to full speed again, I know the office is busy, and I don't know if we're properly staffed in there at the moment either. So if we could.
I think the position is posted on our website, but so you want to do an advertising?
I mean, it's on the website. I guess I wasn't aware of that, but I guess just maybe talking about it, maybe we'll get some coverage and we can get some interest drummed up for that position, because I know Mr. Drymiller could use the help in the office. So.
Do you want to do anything more than the
I think we
website?
need to, you know, who does everybody know, how many people know to look at it, how much
Right.
do they watch us right now? I don't know.
Okay, so if we could
We
put
need
it
something
in.
in the Chronicle or something, I don't know where, but I think we need to get more to get the word out. Because I think
Well, I know there's a lot of, you know, another interesting thing that's happening right now too is that everyone's still home, working from home, and doing home projects, and I think more decks are going on without permits, and more porches and sheds and pools and things that aren't necessarily fine worthy that makes a ton of money, but it's good obviously to keep our records up to date, and you know, that of course through the assessor's office and assessments and all the stuff that then ultimately generate revenue. So I think we would need to do what we can to get a third person in that position for sure.
Well, the good news is I spearheaded an effort at the county to utilize funding in this year's budget, where they once again did a contract for pictometry, which is a flyover of the county, and from the New York State Tax and Finance Department, or Department of Tax and Finance, the images that are taken by pictometry are approved for use for assessment purposes. So when our new assessor came on board, she was part of the reason why I pushed for it, because of the useful tool that it is for many different reasons, but particularly in the assessment office, where you can do comparative images from previous year. And so you can capture that value without doing reval, you know, things like that. So that will help in that area, but I totally agree that we need to get somebody in there from.
Yeah, and I just think it's more of an education piece too. I think a lot of people just don't know that you need to get a permit to put a fence in.
Right.
You know, or you need to get a permit, to put a shed on your property, you need to get a permit to put a pool, in. You know, all these things that most of them can be taken care of at the window, but then when you get an angry neighbor, all of a sudden, Matt's gotta do something with a developer, put that down, to go over and tell someone they gotta stop working on the fence right now, until you take, you know, so I think it's an education piece more than anything, and I, you know, rather kind of attack it that way, so.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to make that advertisement. To place that
I'd
advertisement.
like to make present a motion to place an advertisement in our local newspapers, advertising for part-time code enforcement officer position.
Do we want to do something for rec also at that point?
Peter, how much advertising do you think you would need for your position?
Like a full page ad or half?
I don't know, to be honest. Based on the applications we have in hand, the ones that are pending, being turned in, we may have a decent pool. I think we're looking for a couple of part-time staff right now.
If we can do maybe more, something later for like full-time.
Even fall, when school starts, school's going to start now. We're hiring school-age kids.
School in the home this year.
If you would like to advertise for the park at the same time that you advertise for the building department, that's fine by me. We opted not to do newspaper advertising this winter. We only did website, Facebook, and we got a decent number of hits from that, but I'm happy to have you do.
Or you can put it on the rec Facebook page.
Rec Facebook page and town website.
I'm comfortable just keeping one ad for part-time code enforcement with Chronicle and Post-Star.
I don't know, though, think about it, you're reaching one age group, your retired staff has been strong, are your retired staff watching that rec page? And later, if we need something to pay for a full ad, it's gonna cost us way more than if we had 2 lines.
Well, we got a motion, so do we second
Or we were gonna rescind it and say.
it? Well, you'd have to rescind it.
Again, that's fine. Would Mr. Hogan, Mr. Donahue, would you prefer we add rec to the same advertisement for code enforcement?
Sure.
All right, so I'd like to rescind the previous motion.
I think the long-term goal is I'm thinking that the long-term goal is to get somebody there that has a little bit more expensive building at the ground, but we also need somebody to take care of short-term issues.
Okay. So I would rescind the motion for part-time code enforcement, advertising in local newspapers. And do I have to get a second on this? No. And I would also now like to make a new motion that we place an advertisement for part-time code enforcement in addition to, or additionally, seasonal part-time labor, what we call it, seasonal part-time laborers for buildings and ground and recreation, and as well as full-time buildings and grounds and recreation.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports. I think we covered that.
Oh, one more, but I will tell you that, so I've reached out to Jack Crosby for testing. He's responded back, he's willing to pay for field use. So there really won't be a need for a contract.
Okay.
We will get together and get some information out to him and we'll get that going. We don't have a contract. Do we have a contract, need a contract for the girls softball? And I don't think that Little League was planning on doing anything based upon what you told me.
We have a contract that was signed with girls softball and youth baseball. I will reach out to the president of the organizations and find out what their plans are for this fall. If we can modify existing contracts, or it may be better to offer just a prorated 1-year thing, because those contracts were for 5 years each. I certainly don't want to modify them going forward. Hurricanes, that should be fine. We can look at what they have paid us annually, and again, we can probably come up with a prorated per game fee for them. They are the single largest user of Legion baseball field every year, and they are a really good organization to work with. Completely nonprofit, community-based, so we'll work with them.
Anything else on the record? Or any other committee?
So the other thing is when you talk about the state coming up and digging out those trenches stuff along 197, I noticed they have all kinds of painting alongside the road and stuff. Yesterday and today, from here, I just called the people up.
It had 2 utility companies out.
There was 2 people there yesterday, there's another company there today. So they're out there putting the flags down, so at least it looks like there's something coming our way out there. God knows when, but it looks like we're ready to target.
Well, I think it was a year ago or a year and a half ago that came up and marked out the lines.
Did they?
Yeah, so
Well,
they're doing their job.
keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Any other committee reports? If not, any other business?
No, I thought I had everything together for the newsletter, but after talking to Lisa, it really isn't feasible to do it in the town. And she suggested I talk to Staples, and Staples won't talk to me over the phone. I have to go in and see them, which seemed kind of strange in like where the things are. And I said, just want a price for copying and stapling. He said, oh, no, you have to come in and sit down with us, and we have to go over all of that. So,
Yeah, and the reason that you got that reply, because I asked him to talk with you, is that, as you know, Rudy's not been with us for some time now here working at Town Hall. And he did yeoman's work assisting with the monthly audit, putting all the vouchers together. So my office picked up the slack on that. Jeffrey and Lisa have both been doing a good job, but now we're in the budget season. Jeffrey's, he's got to do the AUD audit. So.
hopefully in 2 weeks. That was target, and now we kind of know, we narrowed it down. Some of the costs, now it's made even easy when as high as $17,000. I was like, oh, yeah, that was my reaction. So I talked to Lisa and put them over to Staples and see about getting the printing, because printing is way cheaper.
Well, I bring that up because we're also gonna have to look at doing something about picking up that, covering that job, because I don't know if it's gonna, what it'll look like, whether it's a newly created position that does many other things, whether it's only part-time, but we need to look at that at budget time. So anyway, anything else?
Yeah, I was wondering, if we're gonna get another draft soon with the solar one.
So, I did talk with council on that. She has a comment. I think she's looking for more direction, from board members, because there didn't seem to be a consensus. But I know she's working on that. I don't know, when that will be, but.
She's still working on it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Malcolm. Appreciate it.
See you all.
Thanks, Leanne, Peter, for coming.